All right, good afternoon, everyone. We're going to start our meeting. We are expecting our third member to join us shortly, but we can start regardless. I apologize for the echo. Oh, maybe we'll take care of that right now. I want to just introduce myself. I'm City Councilor Morris Bergman. I'm the chair of the Economic Development Subcommittee. To my right is Councilor Satra Mitra, at-large City Councilor. Joining us tonight as well is Peter Dunn, Chief Development, Chief of Assist. What's your Peter? Give me your official title. I'm Chief Development Officer. And joining Peter is Michelle Smith, who's the Assistant Chief Development Officer for Planning and Regulatory Services. I got that one right. Joining me now to my left is at-large City Councilor Kate Toomey, and clerking for us tonight is our clerk, A.J. Pottle. We will start the meeting on item 1A, and we'll ask a clerk to read item 1A for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Actually, can you just take attendance, Mr. Clerk? I apologize, now that we're all here.
Absolutely. Councilors Mitra? Here. Toomey?
Here.
And Chairperson, Councilor Bergman.
Here.
Thank you. And Mr. Chairman, item 1A reads, pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, and in order to ensure active public engagement, the City of Worcester currently allows for both in-person and remote participation at its meetings. To partake in the meeting, you can either come in person or you can join via Zoom. The Zoom link is listed on the municipal calendar of the city's website. It is also on the agenda. There's a phone number and there's a link. The phone number for tonight is 1-646-828-7666, and the access code is 160-197-6325. And again, if you are on Zoom and you would like to be heard during any portions of the meeting, we ask that you use the raise hand function. That raise hand function is in the bottom center of your screen if you're on the app, and if you are on a phone, you would dial *9. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Pottle. So we will first inquire, is there anybody on Zoom?
Mr. Chairman, at this time there is one person on Zoom.
Okay, so we're going to go to the people in the audience first, and then we'll go to the person on Zoom. Does anybody from the public want to come forward and give some input on any agenda item on for tonight? We will give you 2 minutes, and if you need more time, hopefully you won't. I'm sure we'll be liberal with our time. So anybody want to come forward, just step forward. Yep.
Thanks very much.
Just name and city of residence, not your street address.
Sure. Thanks very much. Thanks for giving the opportunity to provide public comment. My name is Doug Quattrochi. I'm a resident of the City of Worcester. I'm also the Executive Director of Mass Landlords, which is the statewide trade association for mom and pop rental housing providers in Massachusetts. And we're here in support of item 3C to reduce parking minimums. The recommendation to reduce parking minimums comes from the Worcester Now Next plan, which is the long-range plan adopted by the Worcester Planning Board in March 2024. Basically, we had substantial input into that plan, and we support the recommendations. Now Next promises to free small business owners to reinvest in Worcester by building new facilities, particularly housing with more flexibility than is currently allowed.
You can
pause.
We won't count your time against your 2 minutes. Let's just let the noise abate. Might take a second. All right, I think you're pretty good now.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so there are lots of neighborhoods where reducing parking minimums would have little to no impact because they were built before cars, basically, and there are already good alternatives to travel by car. People can walk, the city's bikeable, there's bus service, plus we have rideshare. We always do more to improve those options, but basically there are lots of, especially renter households, that don't need fully 2 cars per household. There's a study of Buffalo that looks at what happened when we reduced parking minimums, and basically half of the developments had the same parking as would have been required before, and half of the developments had less parking. So basically the market was free to react to smaller numbers of cars per household and do developments that otherwise wouldn't have been allowed. When we consider reducing parking minimums, I think simplicity is key. The Now Next plan has all these different neighborhoods and different corridors and zones where we can consider different minimums. And that's a perfectly good thing to work on. If we could come up with something simpler, even as far as saying developers have to submit a plan, the minimum is 0 parking spaces, but they have to submit a plan that shows there's going to be credible reasons to believe people don't need all this parking, then they can go below what was previously allowed. whatever it is would be helpful, as long as it's simple and people know Worcester is a city they can invest in because they have an opportunity. We have a member here with us tonight who's going to share some commentary about a particular housing development that he was working on that got stopped because of parking minimums. Overall, we would just like to say, let the market decide, and if an investor thinks they can do it with less parking, let's try to do that somehow. Thanks very much for your
Thank you.
consideration.
Thank you. Mr. Kane?
Good evening, members of the Economic Development Committee. Mike Kane, renter here in the city of Worcester, also here on behalf of the Worcester Regional Chamber of Commerce, here to support a reduction in parking minimums here in the city. The Chamber actually produced a report in 2019, two-part housing study, and one of the recommendations of that report was to reduce parking minimums here in the city in order to spur more housing development. And the housing development and that study also aligns with the housing production plan here in the city, as well as the Worcester Now Next plan. And, you know, what also was highlighted in that study was the cost of parking as well. It would cost $60,000 per parking space if you were to build a garage. Now, I don't think that's a good use of money, especially when we're here as a housing and people need more affordable and all types of housing. It's something that, you know, we can utilize as an investment tool, I would say, to build more housing. Additionally, I think if we end up reducing more of the parking minimums, we create more housing developments. That creates more construction jobs in our building trades, as well as allows more people to have the ability to live here in the city, as well as utilize and go to our businesses, employers that we all love here. But again, basically, I just asked the planning board, not the planning board, but the Economic Development Committee to support this reduction in parking minimums.
Okay, thank you. Anybody from the audience want to come forward? Please come forward. Please state your name and city of residence.
Francesco Bavona, Worcester, Mass, District 5. Thank you, members of the committee, for being here tonight. I'm here to discuss item 3C as well. I would like to register my support for eliminating parking minimums as much as possible in the city of Worcester. I generally don't see why it would be necessary to get in between prospective tenants and developers in seeking out what parking arrangements are okay for their housing. If the developer sees that there's a need for a certain number of units and they'll be accepted with the parking that they plan out, seems totally reasonable to me. Generally, it's in line with the Worcester Now Next plan and has been implemented in other cities like Buffalo, as was mentioned earlier today, without too much ill effect. So please consider all due reasonable parking minimum reductions. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Just please state your name and city of residence.
Yes, my name is Emma Morrison. I'm a resident of Worcester. I'm also here for item 3C, and I also support reducing or eliminating parking minimums. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Please step forward. Good afternoon. Name and
Richard Trifoni. I'm a resident of Worcester. I'm also a property owner, income property owner. I support the reduction of parking spaces. I have a 4-unit building on Somerset Road with an RG5 lot next to it, where I could put a 4-unit building, but I lack parking for it. So I would like to see a reduction in that.
Somerset's right there at the intersection of Grafton and Massasoit, right?
Somerset, Hayward,
Yep.
where Hayward, Massasoit meet, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Please come forward. Name and city residence.
Hi, my name's Oliver Chadwick. I'm a Worcester resident. I'm also here to talk about item 3C. A lot of people have made very good points already. One thing that I find really striking is that this seems like one of the very rare issues to come before council or subcommittee where there seems to be pretty much broad agreement across the political spectrum. You've got progressives that support this. You've got the Strong Towns group that supports this. You've got the chamber here that supports this. You've got mass landlords that supports this. You've got the planning board that supports this. It seems like there's really broad agreement. So I really hope that we can come together and move this forward, because as someone already mentioned, the parking is extremely expensive to include in construction and is hindering the ability of developers to provide the needed housing here. I remember sitting in on a Now Next meeting where I think it was Utile who did Now Next, right? Yeah, where they were actually trying to pencil out making gentle density, not some massive tower, just a sensible size building work on the Park Ave corridor, and you could not do it. The thing that was restricting it was the amount of parking that would need to be there. And that is why I believe they included it as one of their first items in the Now Next plan, was to reduce or eliminate the parking minimums. I also say we're not being trailblazers here if we were to eliminate the parking minimums. There are many other cities that have done this already, and the sky has not fallen in those places. So I would really encourage us to take this opportunity to, like I say, come together across the political spectrum and make this change and eliminate the parking minimums. Allow developers, the developer thinks that it works for them, they know their customers. I think they should be able to build a building without this restriction imposed by the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please step forward, name, city residents.
Karen Valentine Goins, City of Worcester. I'm here about item 3C. I support modernizing Worcester's parking regulations, including elimination of off-street parking minimums and potentially expanding parking maximums as an early action step from the Now Next plan on the way to a comprehensive overhaul. I leave it to other speakers to talk about the numbers, sources of information, and complexity factors. And the memo from the administration, which is itself grounded in the Now Next plan, and its extensive public input process, and the Regional Research Bureau report. I want to emphasize the negative impact that parking minimums have wrought are part of the problem on our built environment across the city, and therefore quality of life. It's increasingly recognized across the country how harmful these are by producing excess parking, and also well documented that developers will respond to the market demands for parking. Maintaining the current market, I'm reference to the last speaker saying this is not new, we are not the first ones to do this, and maintaining the current parking minimums doesn't really exert any imagination as to how we could use space instead to enhance livability and quality of life for residents. There's strong support among Worcester residents for changes that move us away from our auto-dominated built environment toward one that encourages social interaction and connection among us, and excess storage for vehicles does not help that. Because one of the biggest tragedies of our current situation that is that lack of or loss of social interaction and connection. The fact that we, by relentlessly accommodating the automobile, has left us with an impoverished built environment that's killing us in ways that are both fast, which is what I'm usually here to speak about, and also slow.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Please step forward, name and city residence.
Good evening. My name is Will Talbot, and I'm a Worcester resident of District 5, as well as a member of the Strong Towns Worcester leadership team. This evening, I'm here to speak on item 3C in favor of zoning reform to eliminate or reduce off-street parking requirements. These requirements stifle the building of affordable housing. They stifle progress on the city's sustainability, livability, and economic development goals, and they can stifle the ability for small businesses to succeed. I'm also here to speak on item 4A and in favor of zoning reform to increase tree canopy protection in the city. The elimination or reduction of off-street parking requirements does not ban new parking from being built, as property owners will still have the freedom to decide how much parking they would like on their properties to meet their specific needs if these requirements are eliminated or reduced. These requirements being removed will help property owners such as residents who regularly use street parking, walk, cycle, or take public transportation, and business owners they won't have to create parking spaces they don't need. If the business owners are relying on foot traffic or they're already being parking near their properties that customers can easily walk to their businesses from. I think shared parking is something that the city can really think about promoting. The space being freed up by this excess parking not being built can lead to the building of more affordable housing, the increase in shaded spaces, which can decrease the prevalence of extreme summer heat. And these shaded spaces can also be places where people can relax and that social connection can occur. And also more small local businesses can be able to open with an easier barrier to entry with them not having to pay for the creation of those parking spaces. The tree canopy protection reforms will also assist with decreasing the prevalence of extreme heat. And these parking spaces not being built will also encourage more sustainable transportation alternatives to gas-powered single-occupancy vehicles. To conclude, I urge the committee and the full council to support these crucial zoning reforms, which can aid the city in meeting its economic development, affordable housing, and environmental sustainability goals. Thank you all.
Thank you. Anybody else on this item? Name and city residence, please.
Hello, thank you for having this meeting tonight. My name is Josh Boucher. I'm a Worcester resident. I'm here today to speak in favor of item 3C, the planning board's recommendation the city aggressively reduce or even eliminate minimum parking requirements on new development. Unscientific requirements set in years past are onerous on developers and serve only to restrict what can ultimately be built in Worcester. In 2026, architecture firm WGI found that the median cost of building a parking garage in the United States was $33,000 per space. Sounds like it was even more expensive in Worcester. And that is an increase of nearly $2,000 from the year before. These out-of-control costs can dissuade small developers from building new housing, commercial developments, and the like in our community. And if they do decide to build, they may pass those costs onto residents, workers, and consumers. Reducing these requirements does not prevent parking from being built. It does not outlaw it. Rather, it allows developers to put their market-based knowledge to work and increases opportunities for small developers to build and redevelop in Worcester. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak on this topic that's in the audience? Okay. Name and city residence, please.
Hello, I'm Ben from Worcester.
I couldn't hear you.
Oh, Ben from Worcester.
What's your last name, Ben?
Oh, Rajat.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to also support item 3C and 5A. I think we should let the free market decide the number of parking spaces and not an arbitrary number that was decided forever ago. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to come forward and speak? Maybe I should ask who doesn't want to come forward and speak. Name and city residence, please.
Joey Ford, I come from Attleboro. I came here tonight because you have the school committee across the hall. They're talking about some budget things. You're talking about economic development. What you guys are talking about does seem extremely important. And I do believe moving forward, it would be responsible to make sure that anything about budget and economic development would be scheduled at different times so that residents could sit in and participate in both equally and equitably.
That's a good point. We'll talk to our schedulers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? We'll go to online. Is somebody still waiting? AJ?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We do have one person raising their hand. This person is Kevin. I just sent a request to unmute Kevin.
Yep.
We can hear you.
Kevin, your full name and city residence, please.
My full name is Kevin Biala. I live in Worcester. I'm going to not waste your time too much here. I think that we have a tax on us because of all these parking spaces, right? They're just sort of choking out all of our choices in every direction. And they're expensive, they take up space, and you know, I'd like if they didn't have to exist to the same extent that they do. It's really that simple. But you got a busy meeting. I hope you have a good.
Okay. Anybody else in the audience want to come forward, or we'll conclude our public speaking portion on any item tonight? Okay.
This is 18-3 zoning.
Okay, step forward, please. Give us your name and city of residence.
City of Worcester.
Helen Raptis, Worcester.
Which item is this, please?
Say it again.
Which item? So we,
Is Jonathan Finkelstein?
that item's going to be held tonight. You're welcome to speak, but just so you know, the item's going to be held tonight.
They will hold it.
We'll hold it for another meeting because Attorney Finkelstein contacted the clerk's office and myself. The actual petitioner is unavailable, out of the country, and there are some other issues, so they did not want to go forward tonight. So as a courtesy, which we routinely do, we'll give them the
As a
opportunity.
courtesy,
You
this
can
has
speak.
happened to me 3 times, the last 3 meetings.
Can I just stop you 1 second? I'm going to give you guys both whatever time you want to speak within the 2-minute rule, and if you need more, we'll certainly be flexible. But you've never been before us on this committee, so if you were continuing with other committees, I feel bad about that, but that's not something we did. So I just want to be clear. We've held this once before, is that right, Mr. Chairman?
No.
Mr. Chairman, that's correct. It's been held once. It was held in February.
And it was held because somebody, just let me finish, I'll give you all the time. Somebody had a medical emergency on the petitioner's side. I don't want to get into specifics because I don't think they would appreciate that. So out of a courtesy, we would do the same for anybody that had a medical emergency. Go ahead.
I don't have a problem with the cancellation 1 time. The time before that, they moved it to the other building. They never let us know it was going on. The time before that, it was another cancellation for something else. So this is the 3rd time I have been here, and I have gotten nowhere.
So I will give you the courtesy of telling us what your position is on this item tonight, and you can come back and repeat it all over again the next time we have this meeting, or you could just wait for the next, it's up to you.
I will do that because you gave me the courtesy, or they did, last time I was here, and I said, oh, don't worry, we'll be here next time. So now we're here, so I will wait. Thank you.
Okay, sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you. Anybody else want to come forward and be heard on anything, any item on the agenda? All right, Mr. Potter, we'll close out the public portion of this council meeting, and we'll move to the agenda items. Item 2A is the approval of the minutes. Mr. Potter, could you take a roll call on that, please?
Councilors Mitra,
Yes.
Toomey,
Yes.
and Chairperson Councilor Bergman.
Yes. Go to item 3A, is report of the planning board upon the petition of Todd Rodman, request to change, it's going to take me a minute to read this, I think. Request to change the underlying zoning classification for the following properties from manufacturing general MG 2.0 to business general BG 3.0 in accordance with the attached plan, 17 Brookfield Street, MBL, map book and lot 13-038-00002. Number 2, 8 Brookfield Street, MBL 13-039-00007. 3, 19 Glennie Street, MBL 13-30C-00010. Number 4, 248 Grove Street, MBL 13-039-00008. Number 5, 288 Grove Street, MBL 13-032-02-09. Number 6, 300 Grove Street, MBL 13-032-10-11. Number 7, 278 Grove Street, MBL 09-026-000C. Number 8, 270 Grove Street, MBL 09-026-00045. Number 9, 15 North Street, MBL 09-026-00026. Number 10, 4R Powers Court, MBL 09-026-00023. Number 11, 4A Powers Court, MBL 09-026-0023A. Number 12, 4 Brookfield Street, MBL 09-020-00021. And number 13, 2 Powers Court, MBL 09-026-00025. Who says this job doesn't give you a workout? Mr. Rodman, Attorney Rodman, please present your position on item 3A.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, my name's Todd Rodman. I'm a lawyer here in the city of Worcester with the law firm of Cedar and Chandler. I'm here tonight on behalf of 7 Brookfield Realty LLC. With me is 7 Brookfield's principal, Alan Levine, and we're proposing the zone changes summarized at item 3A that you just read, Mr. Chairman, And briefly, the purpose of the rezoning is really to bring this district, which is really a legacy manufacturing zone where there's no manufacturing anymore, into a more appropriate business use designation. We're proposing a change from MG2, to BG3, which more accurately reflects what's there on the ground today and what the future use of these properties is going to be. It's also consistent with the city's Now Next long-range plan for the area. When I started this zoning petition, I started working with the planning staff and Ms. Smith, Mr. Dunn. I met with the district councilor, sent notices to all affected parties. The planning board voted on April 22nd to recommend approval of this rezoning, and I'm asking the committee to do the same, to recommend approval to the full council for ordination.
If I may, the planning board decision was unanimous, is that correct?
It was, yes.
Any of my colleagues have any questions? Councilor Mitra?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to hear from the planning board their opinion about this.
Mr. Dunn? So Ms. Smith?
Through the chair, so I can give a recap of that. As Attorney Rodman stated, the planning board did unanimously support this. It involves 13 parcels, or about 13 acres of land. That's currently MG2, which is our highest density manufacturing district, and they're proposing to change it to BG3, which is one of our more dense business districts. The planning board did have a discussion about this and was supportive of eliminating this relic manufacturing zone. As if you go along the corridor, you'll see that we've had a lot of recent development, pretty much none of which is manufacturing. And what we've seen instead is old manufacturing uses and buildings be removed from that corridor. So this aligns with both the reality of what's on the ground and as well as you heard Attorney Rodman mention, this is one of our transformative growth areas in the long-range plan, Worcester Now Next. It has a vision for mixed use. And so by transforming this from a manufacturing zone where we prohibit residential uses, this would provide for a lot more flexibility for potential infill of denser development with, for example, ground floor commercial and retail with offices and or residential above, which today no residential uses would be allowed. So it opens up the door for a lot more variety in development than the current manufacturing uses that are provided for, which are really more heavier, more geared towards automotive uses and pollution generating type uses because of the historic uses that were in this area. The zoning dates back to the 70s in terms of the maps that we have available, and this was consistently zoned manufacturing. It has changed designations over time, but generally been the same since the early 90s. There have been minor changes in areas adjacent to this, but not affecting these particular parcels. So just in terms of the differences of the uses, I mentioned the main difference being no residential in the manufacturing. Now we're allowing up to high-rise residential in the business zone. There are uses that are going away. Again, those are typically the motor freight terminal, open lot storage type of uses. We also enable things like retail, personal services, so your hair salon, your beauty salon, those types of uses are not allowed today. So again, if you kind of go through that corridor, you'll see on the trolley yard, you might see these types of uses on that side of the street. And then we jump to a manufacturing zone, so we see other uses that don't involve those types of uses because we're switching zoning districts. So this would allow the corridor to kind of continue to develop in the same way as you've seen on the left side as you head north. I'm happy to answer specific questions you have. Generally, in terms of dimensional controls, there's more flexibility, I would say, with the business district. There is a 100-foot height limitation that's imposed. There's no height limitation in a manufacturing zone. The floor area ratio, so the density with which we can build, is greater based on the designation. So the two designating sort of full lot build out 2 stories. In the business district, that can be up to 3 stories, essentially for a full lot. Rear setbacks, slightly less. There's no side setback in either district. And then in the front, there is no setback in the business district, as opposed to there is a 15-foot setback in the manufacturing zone. There's differences for the business district in residential uses because we don't contemplate residential uses in manufacturing, so we don't have things like lot area or frontage requirements for them, whereas we do in the business zone. But otherwise, for non-residential uses, they're the same. Again, happy to answer specific questions if you have them. Thanks.
Councilor Mitra?
Mr. Chair, thank you so much, and I think I'm more than satisfied with the explanation from Attorney Rodman as well as Ms. Smith. Just one question, that when it was being heard in the planning board, was there any residents or any business owner had any comments or any objection to this change?
Not for this change, no, not that I recall.
Okay, I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Toomey?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think you said it, but I couldn't quite hear.
You want me to repeat all the lots again?
No. I was just curious, what did you say that there would be a height limit or floor limit?
Sure. So today, the manufacturing zone has no height limit.
Right.
So we use floor area ratio or the density for build-out to regulate that, but there's no limitation for height. In the business district, there would be a 100-foot height limitation that would be imposed, but the density would go up. So instead of the 2.0, it would go to 3. So again, instead of 2 full stories for the whole lot, it could be 3 full stories for a whole lot. Although typically that plays out differently because of parking.
Yep. All right, thank you for clarifying.
Councilor Toomey? So I don't have any questions. Sounds like there was no opposition. Planning Board was excited about it. Economic Development Office is excited about it, as are we. So, Attorney Rodman, if you have nothing further to add, my motion would be to approve, and I'll let our clerk take a roll call.
Councilors Mitra,
Yes.
Toomey,
Yes.
and Chairperson Councilor Bergman.
Yes. We'll move on to item 3B, report of the Planning Board upon the petition of Todd Rodman, Esquire, request to change the underlying zoning classification for the following properties from manufacturing general M20 to residential RG5 in accordance with the attached plan. Number 115 Milton Street, MBL 13-039-00004. Number 217 Milton Street, MBL 13-039-00005. And number 319 Milton Street, MBL 13-039-00006. Attorney Rodman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, for the record, Todd Rodman with the law firm of Cedar and Chandler, again on behalf of 7 Brookfield Realty. I asked Ms. Smith to just pass out a plan, a color-coded plan, which you have in front of you. The prior item, 3A, was the area that's hatched in red. This area on Milton Street is hatched in green, unlike the prior rezoning, which was from a manufacturing to a business zone. This, which is really a residential street, is to be rezoned from manufacturing to RG5 for the same reasons that were outlined previously.
Poets Hill area, correct?
Say again?
It's near the Poet Hill area, Milton
Yes.
Street? Okay. Councilor Toomey, I'll switch sides this time.
I don't have any questions.
Councilor
Very
Mitra?
clear. Thank you.
I think I'm all set, Mr. President.
I just have 2 pretty much perfunctory questions. No opposition of note, or was there some?
There was opposition of note through the chair, so I can clarify. I'm happy to provide more context too, but you drive down the street or take a look at it from an aerial image perspective, these are residential properties. One of these houses does simultaneously also operate a business out of it. And so that particular property owner came forward with concerns about the potential loss of the opportunity to continue to use their property in that way. So what I'll say from a zoning perspective, you have basically 2 different uses happening. One, which is essentially a kind of contractor's yard, right? So a general contractor, they're storing ladders and other components, maybe materials that they're using for construction on their property from time to time. And then you have the residential use. Today, in its current zone, which is manufacturing, the residential use is essentially illegal. What's proposed would be to pull it into an RG5 or a residential district, which is consistent with the rest of the neighborhood off to the east. Which would flip, and instead of making the residential use illegal, it would lawfully allow the residential use, but it would make that business use illegal. Because it exists today at a time where the business use is legal, it would become privileged, non-conforming, as we call it, essentially allowing that use to continue. And then were they to want to make changes or intensify that use in the future, they could come in and get special permission to allow that. And they had expressed concerns that neighbors will complain from time to time that they're storing a commercial vehicle on the property, which is indicative of maybe that use not feeling like it fits in with the neighborhood, right? But they had expressed concerns, so we had offered that if they wanted to work with us, we could document the existing conditions to help prevent that, were that to change, to enable that to happen into the future with this change, recognizing that clearly if that is happening, that this zoning is in fact something that does align with what probably others in the area would want to see.
So it sounds like they were grandfathered in and didn't realize it.
You got it.
Okay.
Yep.
And planning board was a 4-0 vote?
It was unanimous. I believe that it was 3-0 just based on attendance that evening.
I don't have any other questions. Based on that, do either of my colleagues have any questions? Councilor Mitra?
No, I'm all set.
All set, thank you.
Okay, my motion would be to approve. Mr. Pottle, could you do the roll call?
Councilors Mitra,
Yes.
Toomey,
Yes.
and Chairperson Councilor Bergman.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll go to item 3C. Report of the Planning Board upon the communication of the city manager transmitting information communication relative to minimum off-street parking requirements. So I think this is pretty much the reason why a majority of people are here. So Mr. Dunn or Ms. Smith, which one of you wants to give us, or maybe both, kind of a summary of the issue before us?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can start. Peter Dunn, Chief Development Officer. This is an item, an informational communication that we had submitted to the council in the fall of 25, for which the planning board also had a hearing on it. I believe that was also in the fall, yes, on October 22nd, 2025. By way of introduction, again, as has been referenced, the Worcester Now Next plan that we spent a lot of time on with a lot of community engagement, our first long-range comprehensive plan in over 40 years for the city, identified 6 early action items. We've been making progress on those. This is one of those critical 6 early action items, and it called for reduction of off-street parking requirements for some of the reasons that have been stated already by the public. And so what we have attempted to do with this, because we know it is a very important topic to a lot of stakeholders and constituents, is this is not recommending a specific new zoning ordinance amendment or specifically the elimination of off-street parking at this time. This is an informational communication to provide the community, the planning board, this committee and council with a background of why does Worcester Now Next say this, what research has gone into that, what did the community tell us during that planning process. We've obviously as staff been looking at what other communities have been doing. There's a lot of trends that have been really trying to address this and tackle this across the nation, because again, when you think about the boom of the automobile in the mid-20th century, a lot of communities were trying to accommodate that, figure out how to adapt and accommodate that, and use zoning as a regulatory control to provide for that accommodation. And most of them initially had a mandate for off-street parking requirements. We've seen a lot of those, explicit and implicit costs and trade-offs around that, and also some questions around why are those ratios what they are. Do those make sense? Is it being utilized? And what could land be used for in a more productive way than an over-dedication of scarce land for the storage of personal automobiles? So that's by way of background. And again, this is to get further input from stakeholders before what we anticipate happening is we would submit a specific recommendation for a zoning ordinance amendment to the council and the planning board likely this fall. So we're hoping for probably sometime around September, October.
Without committing to specific recommendations, because it's premature to do that, could you give us an idea of like the range of what could be options on the table?
Yes, sure. So I think at one extreme is the elimination of off-street parking. The planning board, as was referenced, has signaled their openness and support for that, and if not eliminating off-street parking requirements, aggressively reducing them.
This would be for, I didn't mean to interrupt, this would be for residential only or residential and commercial?
Right now, the zoning ordinance calls for off-street parking requirements across a variety of use classifications, residential, commercial, and the like. I think a lot of the topic, because of what's been going on with housing scarcity, has been around the trade-off of parking and unlocking more housing production, but we are looking at commercial as well. I think we've had less of a challenge in navigating some of the commercial. A couple of note that we've seen in our experience with, variance applications to the Zoning Board of Appeals, for example, has been the adaptive reuse of existing buildings. So when somebody leaves a building and then maybe a new use is coming in, a change of use, they need to comply. So we've seen that result in sort of just the inhibition of successful adaptive reuse of buildings at times, and we've also seen that come up more common with food service establishments based on the current ratio for parking requirements on food service establishments. So we'll look at that, but again, I think a lot of the commentary has been more, focused on the housing, but we're looking at this holistically.
I think tonight's been exclusively on residential housing. I'm going to let my colleagues fire away with questions, and then I'm sure I have some comments as well. I'm going to keep rotating back and forth. Councilor Mitra?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we heard from most of the residents who are present here. We heard their comments. It looks like everybody's in favor of reducing the parking, off-street parking. I'm in favor of it. I think the cost-effective, which we need to be looking at, as the Chamber of Commerce has done its survey and found out that it costs so much to have the parking spots. So the explanation that you gave is good for the economic development as I see it, and for that purpose, I think I'm in favor of this.
Okay. Any further questions, or are you set for now?
I'm all set for now.
Councilor Toomey?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Certainly, there's been a great deal of work done on this issue. And listening to the cost, I think it was stated that the cost of parking space in 2019 was $60,000, and I think if I did my calculations right, we've got about a 30% increase in the cost of what that parking spot would be today. That's a lot of money. One question I have is, how are we doing in conversations with the RTA and providing a more robust public transportation system?
Through the chair to the councilor, I think, of note for the last several years, WRTA has been fare free, which has increased ridership substantially. There are a number of constraints related to, what they can offer in terms of their route network and the way the route network is set up on the hub and spoke model, as many people call it, where if you're going from the west side of the city to the east side of the city, you'll have to come downtown and get into the bus hub and then take a transfer. So that can create significant trip time for folks if they're going from one corner of the city to the other, if they're not coming downtown. There's obviously a variety of other economic constraints that RTAs, across the state and beyond are struggling with in terms of increasing, frequency of service or additional routes and all of that. So we, can't necessarily, I guess, influence too much of what they do as an independent agency that they are. But I think we try to do that through, I believe the city has at least one, if not two, board members. But I think just your point generally taken about what are alternative forms of transportation and are those working, are they safe, are they accessible, are they affordable? Those all come into play when we think about personal automobile travel versus what are those other forms and has it been working?
Have we had any discussion with any developers about the possibility of car share opportunities when they're building a multi-unit building, of offering that as a amenity?
Through the chair of the councilor, some of the notable car sharing or ride sharing services like an Uber and Lyft obviously pick up folks in the right of way. But we have had a couple of examples, I think, that have had dedicated parking spots for like a Zipcar type of service as well. So we have seen some of that trend for sure.
Good. Thank you very much. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you. If either of my colleagues have follow-up questions, please let me know. I do have a few. So, Mr. Dunn, would this apply in theory or the principle of what you're thinking to new development, or would it be apply to all development, whether it was new or existing?
Through the chair to the chair. So right now, the off-street parking ratios that are called for in the zoning ordinance apply to new buildings, new land uses, but also changes in land uses. So that's in the example I gave on the commercial side of things, some of the, constraints or challenges we see with the adaptive reuse of an existing building if the use is changing and it's, historically had a small parking lot or limited off-street parking. We're kind of creating unnecessary barrier to see that property get back into productive use by saying, well, we'd love to see that building reused. The parking lot today has 7 spaces, but now if you don't provide, 10, 12 spaces, you're now subject to a discretionary approval of the zoning board for a variance and the like. So I think that part of the benefit that I wanted to highlight, aside from what's been noted around, some of the trade-offs that exist, the costs that off-street parking bears to those landowners, is the fact that we have a significant volume of variance applications to the Zoning Board of Appeals for reductions of the required off-street parking. More than 90% of them get approved. So part of this is also a reflection of, we all are recognizing as a community through the regulatory bodies that we have that the zoning ordinance is calling for too much off-street parking required. And so if we have a 90% plus approval rating for those variance requests, we're spending a lot of unnecessary time, both within the administration and processing all of those, the public hearings involved, the administration of those applications, as well as from the applicant's perspective, filling out the time, waiting, 5-6 weeks for that hearing to come up, potentially paying for professional services to help them navigate that. So I think there's a lot of time and money wasted through that. And by addressing this, I think we save not only the city, but also the constituents and the private sector equally that time and money.
Do you find that the applications in front of the zoning board are for commercial properties, for parking space relief, or residential?
I would say it's definitely both at times. It's also just a reflection of certain market conditions around, what is being built today. We're not seeing a lot of new office buildings built right now, obviously, because of the, lingering effects of COVID and remote work and existing vacancies that exist in office spaces right now. So we're just seeing more residential development right now than we are commercial development. We've certainly had examples and have many examples of commercial applications for variances of the off-street parking as well. But I think it might make sense. I'll offer Ms. Smith if she wants to comment a little bit more about kind of what they've been seeing.
Sure, through the chair, to the chair. We have definitely seen both. As Mr. John stated, the majority of what we're seeing in the pipeline and coming through permitting is residential in nature. So therefore, we're seeing the majority of those be residential. Just to give you a couple examples of some of the commercial relief requests we've seen, if you went to any of the Brussels markets or Market on Brussels, which is now relocated, but if you've been into any of those spaces within those buildings over there, they navigated quite a bit of challenge when it came to parking, even though there's quite a bit of parking if you've been over there. They actually have a variance for about, I believe it's about, their requirement is near double what they have. And they have off-site parking spaces that are across one of the residential side streets that they use to meet their zoning requirements for that. That was a huge burden for them when they were trying to retrofit and get a small brewery in there, trying to see those spaces get reused. So again, example of adaptive reuse, beautiful historic building, interesting context. All of that resulted in big permitting hurdles for them and delays for business owners operating.
How would the handicap parking be impacted by this?
They'll still, so I won't be able to speak specifically to all of the building code requirements, but the building code requirements would be the same. So if there's public access that's needed, there's still a certain number of spaces, or if there are spaces provided, they need to meet the requirements. But obviously, in certain contexts, there's no ability to provide for parking specifically. If you come to the downtown, right, there are buildings that are on lots and there is no parking at all. So it's about access to the building and then access within the building being accessible. So it's not necessarily that you have to provide the accessible parking under the building code, but if you're providing that you have to meet those requirements for those spaces. If you're providing a parking lot, there is a ratio of the number of spaces in the parking lot that you need to meet to make those accessible.
So just to kind of bring the conversation to like relevant numbers for myself and anyone else who might find it helpful, and I could be wrong on my recollection, but like a business, a typical business, I thought it was for every 300 square feet, it's one parking spot. Is that more or less correct?
Mr. Chairman, it really does depend on the commercial use. To your point, the more common ones like an office, a bank, other professional offices, retail, personal services are about one space for every 300 square feet. And as I mentioned before with the kind of what we've seen in terms of the challenge of too much required off-street parking, it tends to come up more with food service food service uses. The ratio on that is by seating capacity of that food service.
Was it one for every 2 seats, if I remember, or am I? It's been a while.
Yeah, through the chair, it's a half, so basically 2 seats ends up being one
That's
parking
what I was
space.
right, yeah.
Yep.
Now, the one I don't remember, I could guess, but I'll let you guys are the experts, on an apartment, how many parking spaces? 2 per unit?
2 per unit, regardless of size, regardless of owner or rental occupancy.
So the proposals we're looking at, again, I'm not asking you to commit, would it be, let's say with an apartment, would it be to go from 2 to 0, or go 2 to 1, or it's obviously a work in progress, but I know there's other cities you're looking at. And so I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, it's a great question. And as Ms. Smith said, there's the base level ratios that is 2 spaces per unit, regardless of the bedroom count, which I think is something to consider. But I also think I want to stress, it was mentioned in one of the comments of the planning board, was also simplicity, right? So instead of getting into the complications of like, well, it's 1.5 for 3 bedrooms, it's 1 for 1, but I think we can, get too complicated with it as well. I do want to note, there are existing overlay districts. It's mentioned in the memo, but just for anybody that hasn't read through the memo, there are some overlay districts that exist in the city now that do provide some reductions to that. Most notably downtown in the BG6 zoning district, which is basically the central business district, we have no requirement for off-street parking at all for any use. And as I think somebody said, the sky doesn't fall downtown. The market, I think one of the things that gets sensationalized about the concept of eliminating off-street parking is that people think that parking will be taken away or parking won't be created. I think most landowners and developers know that their property needs to be marketable. So they're going to determine, based on what is my use, how many units do I have, what is the business that I'm looking to attract here. They're going to want to provide some level of parking to make sure that their property is successful. So I just think that's an important thing to note, that the idea of eliminating off-street parking requirements doesn't mean that we are eliminating the concept of parking. But I think what we're seeing from just the demand generation right now is we're seeing a lot of the multi-family properties in the city, like the apartment buildings in the city, ones that have been built, they're online. Now we have empirical data of like, how many of your residents need a parking space? We're seeing that ratio being somewhere in the 0.75 to 1 range in terms of just what is really needed on the market demand. We do have some properties that have provided no parking for their apartment building, and it hasn't created a catastrophe in terms of the marketability of them attracting tenants. There could be that a couple of tenants might have a car and they're finding parking either on street or somewhere off-site. But I think what we're generally seeing in terms of just, the propensity of somebody owning a car is somewhere around that 0.75 per unit ratio.
Downtown, is that correct?
Anywhere.
Anywhere in the city?
Anywhere.
Okay. Because intuitively, I would think that, people that have families, kind of like TV sets. When you're growing up, you had one and everybody shared it. Now it seems like everybody wants a car when they reach a certain age. And so if you're saying, does that apply to all age groups as far as your demographics?
It definitely varies, and certainly like, a family household, right? You have a single family home, if you have folks that aren't even old enough to drive yet, that's going to impact that. We are seeing some developers, again, just to note that there is a range, to your point, where we have seen some developers, regardless of what the zoning ordinance might be, suggesting they provide, that they just feel more comfortable at like 1.5 spaces per unit, because they just feel like it's going to make it more attractive for folks that they feel like they're marketing to your point, if it's like somebody that maybe a certain demographic age range, or the proximity of the location to like a highway, for example. You see that a little bit more in some of the suburban contexts, where if somebody's like building a multifamily right off of a highway exit, they're probably going to have, a little bit higher propensity for cars there than if you're in like a dense walkable area. I can walk to, get food. I can walk to go to the bank. I can, we're trying to, build out those amenities too, particularly in the urban core, so that we create an environment where it's not actually necessary to have a personal vehicle to get those, amenities that you just need for your everyday life.
Okay, I just have a couple more questions, but do either of my colleagues have any? I don't want to monopolize. I guess I'm going to kind of end up with a couple comments. So I definitely could be supportive of reducing the numbers. I don't think I could be supportive of totally eliminating the needs unless there were exceptional circumstances. And I think, somebody had mentioned quality of life when they spoke, and I agree, there is a quality of life issue, but those of us that have been in the council long enough remember some of the neighborhood leaders who used to advocate strongly for not reducing the parking requirements because they felt that a lot of people would park in front of established houses with driveways because they didn't have their own parking. So I think there's a balance to be drawn there, and I do concede that perhaps we have too much of a requirement and we should reduce that. I don't have any issue with that, and I could definitely be supportive of that, but I think, this room is filled with people that are advocates for it, but I think when you go into the neighborhoods, you also hear from people who are concerned during wintertime, when parking becomes a premium, and so on and so forth. If there's no parking in a new building, they're going to park in front of my house, and then they're going to have to put chairs out, like you see in very urban areas. So I think there's a balance, and I also could be very supportive of reducing those numbers. I just think the numbers don't go to zero. I've also heard some other comments regarding it being socially better for people not to have parking areas. I don't really, to be honest, understand the argument. I mean, I think there are social connections that have been lost over time, but I kind of blame this more than anything else, not cars. But I look forward to the report. And Mr. Pottle, is this something we vote on or vote to file?
Mr. Chairman, the way that the communication was brought forward was to ask for hearings both at Planning Board and at Economic Development, and then to further the conversation through potentially a draft ordinance. So I think potentially a good option could be to ask for a draft ordinance in whichever way the committee wants to frame it. And I will also defer to Peter and Michelle if they have any additional information that may be helpful to you.
Before we get to that, Councilor Mitra?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Mr. Dunn. Did I hear you right that this would be applicable to minimum parking ordinance for only the new development, or it's also for the existing buildings as well?
Yeah, through the chair. So with respect to the requirements, that how our zoning ordinance is constructed is that it applies for new development and essentially redevelopment of land. So whatever uses are in place now basically are privileged. If they want, so say they built out excess parking and now the property has the ability to densify, to add more units. If we lower the parking requirements, if say we eliminate them and they have a way to reconfigure it and add a whole bunch more units, they would be able to do that so long as it's within the parameters of the new zoning code. So basically those changes and modifications to existing uses, the new code would apply. But ultimately, it's really the new development that's going to influence and spur by seeing those changes and flexibility that's being offered versus for a developer coming in or a homeowner who just wants to find a way to add another unit. And we have ADUs now, but there are folks that are looking to add more than one unit, and we only allow one ADU. So this gives them the flexibility to know that the parking isn't going to be the hurdle, right, and that they don't have to put the driveway in because then they're going to remove the on-street parking space that Josie down the street uses in the winter. They don't want to have a disagreement with the neighbor, but they can add the additional unit and not have to worry about that. Their tenant, they know, doesn't have a car. They're close to transit, they can walk. These are the types of things we enable by taking back those requirements and saying, let's let the market drive that, or at least trying to get closer to what that market condition is, which right now, as you heard Mr. Dunn say, we're quite a bit of ways from that, both in the residential and in the commercial.
So, to the chair, I'm in favor of the concept of minimizing the parking, off-street parking, but at the same time, I also agree with chairperson that I don't probably like to see that to be zero. Maybe there is some parking availability, and I'm also remain concerned about the if there are any handicap parking that's already there, they're not going to be taken away, right? if there is right now any parking already there, is there concern about those to be taken out, or if we minimize or reduce the parking space?
Well, through the chair to the council, I think, as was referenced before, the requirement for handicap parking and accessibility is not regulated by zoning, so we wouldn't be changing that. It lives in the building code.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair, appreciate that.
Councilor Chimney?
I have no questions. Thank you.
All right, so, Mr. Dunn, what would you recommend, I mean, ultimately, we'll vote on it, on something that we feel is appropriate, and I trust that you or Ms. Smith will give us, or both of you, will give us something appropriate to vote on. My sense is that would be voting for you to go ahead and draft an ordinance, taking into consideration our comments, which is in the public's comments, that we need some changes, but not necessarily down to no parking. So is that something you could, sounds like it's the range you were thinking about anyways, changing it, lowering it, but not necessarily going to zero. So what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, through the chair, I do think for this item, you could have maybe a motion to file this item, but couple that with like a chairman's order asking the administration to come back to the council with a recommended zoning ordinance amendment that, I guess it would be up to you if you want to say reduce or eliminate off-street parking, or just reduce off-street parking, or you could just say, to your point, like consistent with feedback that has been gathered. I guess you could leave it open-ended, but if you wanted to make a particular statement that you wanted it to be a reduction, not an elimination, or a reduction or elimination, and leave it to the, but that was kind of what we wanted to do through this exercise of going to the planning board, committee, and council with this informational communication, was starting to take the temperature of folks if, on what like level of reduction would be palatable. Because I think at the end of the day, we're overdue on getting these ratios into a better place, and we wouldn't want to come forward with something that doesn't get the support it needs to make the improvements that we feel like are necessary.
So what would the word reduction to me could include anything from going down to going to nothing. So I don't know if we necessarily have to say nothing, because I think you'll take into consideration everything you've heard, not only from those that are here, but those on this committee.
Sure.
So if I don't have any objection from my colleagues, we'll do a motion to file. And then before we do that, I'll make a chairman's order that the Economic Development Office, in conjunction with the city manager, put together a zoning amendment. Would that be what we would be doing? A zoning amendment that would reflect a reduction in the ratios of parking throughout the city, consistent with the comments heard by the public and the Economic Development Subcommittee. Anybody have any issues with that wording? Please don't ask me to repeat it. I won't be able to do it. So then we'll do the chairman's order. You have that, Mr. Pottle?
I do. Thank you, Mr.
And then
Chairman.
if you could give us a roll call on the motion to file.
Councilors Mitra,
Yes.
Toomey,
Yes.
and Chairperson Councilor Berkman.
Yes, thank you. So for those of you who want to stay for more excitement, you're welcome, but that item is off our agenda, and we're on to 3D, which is report of the planning board upon the petition of Jonathan Finkelstein. So that's going to be a motion to hold. Do any of my colleagues have any objections on that? To hold it? Okay. So item 4D, roll call, please, on a motion to hold. I'm sorry, 3D.
Councilors Mitra,
Yes.
Toomey,
Yes.
and Chairperson Councilor Berkman.
Yeah, so 3E, report of the planning board upon the communication, the city manager recommending adoption of zoning ordinance amendment related to driveways, pavements, and permits. So this is also going to be a motion to hold. I'll give a little bit of an explanation on that, and that is that it's come to the attention of the Economic Development Office, and brought to my attention as well, that a lot of the language in the adoption of the zoning ordinance refers to permits, and we really haven't fully vetted how those permits will come to fruition. So we need a little bit more time. Special services, DPW, everybody has to work together to decide how that's going to play out. So it'd be premature for us to vote on this item. So if either of my colleagues don't have any objection, my motion on 3E would be to hold it. And you could take a roll call on that, Mr. Pottle.
Councilors Mitra,
Yes.
Toomey,
Yes.
and Chairperson Councilor Bergman.
Yes. Item 4A is transmitting information communication relative to the tree canopy protection program. Ms. Smith, you're in the best position to give us some feedback on that. Could you give us a little bit about an idea on what the program is and how it's doing?
Sure, through the chair. So I will say, or lack thereof, because we don't really have a program. So I will kind of summarize. This memo is intended to do something similar as to what we were just talking about relative to parking, but just sort of get the committee members and the council up to speed on where we are right now with tree protection in our community. We know trees are really important infrastructure, actual infrastructure, critical infrastructure, even in the built environment. They play really important roles in helping us cool our places off in extreme heat. They help us absorb stormwater in flooding events. They're wonderful aesthetic amenities. They help improve public health. There are so many different reasons that people love trees. So trees are great. We've had an urban forestry master plan that focused on trees mostly within the public realm. So our streets, our parks, our open spaces. But what we didn't really dive into was private property. And so that's where we kind of come in the economic development realm with the regulations through zoning, through subdivision control, and otherwise where we really have kind of an existing void. So right now today, the regulations that we have on the books, you own 14 acres of land. And if you want to go out to your property and there are no wetlands and you're not in an area with an endangered species, you can just go clear cut all of your land. And if you call and complain to the city, there is nothing that we can do. So we have that happen regularly, in fact, where we get complaints about acres of land that have been clear cut. And we go out and we look and we see if there's a violation, and most often there's nothing that we can do. There's no requirements to have them put back the forest that was once there. And often, you know, when we go and we say, well, why did you do that? They are saying, well, you know, we want to develop it in the future, so we figured why not clear cut it now? But they don't actually have any plans to actively develop that site, and we see sites sit for 5, 6 more years that no longer have the forest on them that was once there, providing, again, all those wonderful environmental benefits. And we get complaints about that, right? So that means that residents and members of our community are not thrilled with that activity happening. Certainly one of the things that we see with development proposals for any site, when neighbors come in with concerns and objection, you know, it tends to be around privacy and being able to, I'm going to look at the back of this. You know, we live in a city, obviously. There are realities of that, but there's also what people are used to, and there's also the reality of the function that those trees provide for us as a community, and trying to think about how we try to balance the need to develop with also the need to consider trees as part of that development. Because of our topography, one of the biggest challenges we have is preserving trees, because the easiest thing for most site work to come in and do is basically clear cut, regrade, often in our topography, construct large retaining walls, and so it's not really possible to retain trees. So, you know, thinking about how do we get back what we lose if there is some form of clear cutting, what is an appropriate amount of mitigation in different types of contexts, right? You know, a downtown lot is not going to be the same as something, you know, that might be in a more suburban context. They're different. The context is just different. So it's hard to have a one size fits all. So there's a lot of different ways that communities come up with regulations around this. Communities take different approaches where they might say, you know, we want to regulate a specific species of trees because they're particularly important in our cultural identity, or in this particular corridor because it's Elm Street, so we want to protect all the elms. So there's lots of different ways that folks do that. Most often folks have provisions around kind of clear cutting or thresholds for how many acres or how many square feet, for examples, maybe in Worcester. Are we going to say, you know, that amount of removal is going to trigger some form of a permit? When you have that linked up with development or intertwining it with development, that can create synergies and streamline a process. But right now we don't have a program or a process for that. As you heard, you can just go do it. So What we had laid out in this memo is just different options for that. Again, communities doing everything from the individual trees of a certain size, so larger trees. And again, I'm not talking about trees that are right along a street. We have regulations for that through our tree warden that regulate that. We're talking about on people's private properties, so that big beech tree in someone's backyard or in the front yard, if that's something we want to regulate. Challenges for regulating individual trees or species specific become very difficult to implement. It's onerous when it comes to both permitting but also administration. What type of, if you're doing a certain caliber size tree, you have to go out and do an inspection and figure out, does the tree qualify or does it not qualify? Is it less? Is it more? Is it the right species? You have to have folks that are trained in this to be able to respond. And often all of this is enforcement or complaint driven. So there's a big resource demand when it comes to thinking about implementation of regulations that are more specific to individual trees versus this larger threshold around size of removal. There are communities that also regulate it in certain buffer areas, like a perimeter of a lot. We regulate tree removal near wetlands. The state law provides us with the ability to do that. We have a local ordinance where we regulate and don't allow for disturbances and tree removal within 15 feet of wetlands, ponds, rivers, et cetera, without a public process. So that would not change or be affected by what we'd be proposing. Those would all stay in effect. But what we are contemplating is finding a way, as recommended in Now Next, as recommended in the Urban Forestry Master Plan, through threads that are in the Hazard Mitigation Plan and the Green Worcester Plan, but coming up with some form of regulation that tries to bring stronger tree protections in for new development and create stronger requirements for replanting if there are trees that are being removed within some form of reason. Likely that's the direction that we, I think, as the administration would like to go. But ultimately, the idea was to sort of posit the different ideas, understand committee members' feelings on ideas related to tree canopy protection. There are certain things you would like us to explore as we move forward to similarly propose an ordinance. Again, this is another short-term Now Next recommendation in a recommendation in the Urban Forestry Master Plan that sort of builds off of the work that was done there, but dives into a different territory of the city.
Thank you. Councilor Toomey?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the things that I know is an issue, and I know that we're working on a comprehensive plan, but included in this, I hope that regarding invasive species, that we have some regulations on that as well. I know I've been getting phone calls from people all across the city regarding Tree of Heaven and the lanternfly, spotted lanternfly invasion. And I know that if you don't remove those properly, it creates more problems. So please keep in mind all invasive species as well. We really want to encourage people to retain, obviously, trees that are of a certain age or girth. And really, we don't want to encourage clear cutting if it can be avoided. That certainly, that impacts drainage, it impacts all sorts of stuff. So I'm not an engineer, but I know enough about that. Those are just my concerns. Thank you.
Welcome, Councilor Mitra.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Ms. Smith. Thank you for your explanation. I think this piece is just for our information, just to promote the idea at this point. I don't think we're going to be voting on this at this point, that's my understanding. I think we all understand the need of the tree, the vital role it plays in our community, in parks and cemeteries and places like that. But this kind of information that's given here will certainly help people to understand the vitality of it and the importance of it. And I really appreciate giving this to us. And I hope we can promote this to let people know that how important it is for us to have the tree canopy ordinance in place. So thank you very much for giving us this information.
Just a couple maybe follow-up questions or comments, but I'll be brief on this item. And I remember when I was on the zoning board in the 1990s, we tried to implement some sort of process where if developer cut down X number of trees, they would pay into some sort of tree fund or something to have trees planted elsewhere in the city. Failed miserably, obviously, because we're still talking about it. So I think, I'm just wondering out loud, we talked earlier about the parking, we talked about how the garages and the parking spaces are cumbersome and expensive to developers, but also, and I'm a fan of trees, and I'm not suggesting we don't have a tree canopy ordinance, but I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of pushback from developers who are going to say that when we go in to build up a site, you know, we cut the trees and we build. If we have to start weaving around trees, it's going to be a lot more expensive. So have you had any pushback or any conversations with developers about that potential pushback?
I can start, Mr. Chairman, and then see if Ms. Smith wants to add. One of the things we were hoping to do with this item, similar to the parking, although this one didn't go to planning board, because we're actually, one of the questions is, does this live in the zoning ordinance or maybe in the general ordinances of the city? So doesn't necessarily go to planning board if it's not going to be in the zoning ordinance. But some of the key questions, to your point, that I think we want to have this dialogue, and we can continue this with other outreach. We certainly have a kind of a pulse of some community input, probably more resident-oriented input than developer input that we'll continue to gather, but through the urban forestry master plan and some of these things that have already been going on related to this topic, and obviously Worcester Now Next. But you know, one of the things that's kind of, or a series of questions that's outlined in this item to kind of be thinking about where do we go with this is, who is, you know, the implementing department? What does that process look like? To Michelle's earlier point, if we're regulating this by caliper, that's, you know, requiring somebody to go out and measure the caliper of the tree or look at the species, confirm the species of the tree. What are the applicable activities are we talking about? Is this more of the clear cutting issue, which is the more the, you know, I guess the more visceral complaints that we get is when somebody's losing an entire tree canopy versus like the one tree. So we're trying to figure out, like, as we move forward and figure out what is the right sweet spot for this, balancing those interests with private property owners' interests and not having an overreach of government. Fees are talked about in this, right? So if there's like a violation, is it reactionary? Is there a fee rather than requiring the replanting of a tree? Is it a fee that goes into a fund? So those are the kinds of things that could be incorporated in ordinance that have been used in other communities. And so that's where we've kind of posed some of that just to continue to get input from folks as we try to, like we always do. A lot of this is about balancing interests, and so figuring out when we do come forward with that proposed ordinance, where it lives in the zoning ordinance or general ordinances, what is the scope of that, and have we found the right sweet spot? Generally, I think we're of the opinion we're not trying to regulate every single tree out there. On private properties, it's more about the clear cutting, and particularly in development review, we have you know, landscaping requirements that come up right now through site plan review, but you know, ratios around, okay, if this particular site, if it's not a vacant open land that was previously developed, if it does have dense urban forest on it and you're taking down 300 trees, should you be required to put back 10%? You know, those are the things that we're trying to think through, and I think ultimately we'll arrive at something that we feel like is striking the right balance. But it's those kinds of things that we wanted to just have this informational communication to get more. I appreciate
that. Would it be your recommendation we file this or hold it for future information?
File it.
Okay. Either of my colleagues have any other questions?
Good.
All right, so just to be clear, this is a work in progress.
Correct.
More to come. Would you take a roll call and a motion to file, Mr. Pottle?
Councilors Mitra,
Yes.
Toomey,
Yes.
and Chairperson Council Bergman.
Yes. So, bear with me 1 second to get my agenda.
Thank you. Yep.
What I'd like to do is take the next 5 items in order, starting with 4B, 5A, 5B, and 5C, I think are all related. I'd like to take them all together, and these will be the last. Thank you, Ms. Smith. And these will be the last items of the day, and the items are as follows. Item 4B, transmitting information communication relative to hosting NCAA events in Worcester. Item 5A, in order the City of Council Tony Economo, Council Kathleen Toomey, Council Jose A. Rivera, Council Joseph M. Petty, Council Satra Mitra, request Standing Committee on Economic Development discuss the feasibility of establishing a Worcester Sports Commission consisting of at least 9 and no more than 13 members to be appointed by the city manager. Said commission should be charged with attracting, promoting, and supporting sporting events in the Worcester to drive economic activity, community engagement, and city branding. Membership should include but not be limited to a city representative local business leaders, sports and venue representatives, college athletes, staff, tourism, hospitality professionals, youth sports organizers, and local athletes or league representatives, as well as citizens representatives. The commission shall elect a chairperson who will, with member input, establish short and long-term goals, including potential fundraising and growth strategies. Be it further requested that the commission be a volunteer body. That's item 5A. Item 5B, order of Councilor Christian E. King, Councilor Jose Rivera, request Standing Committee on Economic Development discuss the strengthening any future submission of the bid by the College of the Holy Cross and/or Patriot League to the NCAA in efforts to host preliminary round of the Division I Men's and Women's March Madness tournament. Further requests that discussion also include any bids available relative to Division II and Division III NCAA basketball tournaments. Further request said discussion also include the potential of hosting NCAA tournaments for additional sports. Further request representatives from Discover Central Massachusetts be invited to said discussion to provide any suggestions related to submitting future bid submissions. Further request all requirements relative to bringing the NCAA March Madness tournament to the city be outlined. Further, if such NCAA bids are found to be unfeasible, request the Standing Committee on Economic Development discuss the process for the city to host future National Invitation Tournament, NIT. That's item 5B. Item 5C, order of Council Morris A. Bergman, request Standing Committee on Economic Development explore the criteria and deadlines for the city to apply to be a host city for each sports NCAA tournament for the purpose of providing City Council with timeframes and processes relative to said individual applications. So that's item 4B, 5A, 5B, and 5C. We have Mr. Dunn here. Is anybody in the audience here on this? I think I see some people that are here. Anybody want to speak on this item that hasn't spoken already? Sorry? Yep. I see Mr. Byrd. Anybody else? Walter, would you step forward and, if you're more comfortable, you're welcome to sit at a chair. Okay. I'll give that offer to anyone following you as well. Name and city of residence.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee. Walter Byrd, City of Worcester, and here as a resident and a constituent of Worcester. I just want to start off by saying this was something I brought forward because it seemed to me that we have a couple of different committees here near our commissions. We have our Civic Center Commission. We have our Ballpark Commission. I know Discover Central Mass has a committee as well. There are a lot of cities around the country that have enacted sports commissions. Boston created one, a Greater Boston Sports Commission. They ended up doing a lot of work with the World Cup. So I just want to say, if I can, the Worcester Sports Commission, as I propose it, and I would be remiss if I didn't say that it was brought forward by Councilor Tony Economou. It shouldn't be viewed as competing with the existing efforts, including Discover Central Mass. It really would be the city's strategic partner, and it would be a city commission on attracting, developing, and supporting sports tourism and leveraging all of the existing efforts. Sports tourism is one of the fastest growing segments of the tourism industry. Obviously, we know the value, and of course, Councilor King has mentioned basketball, and that's just one of them, and there's many of them. We know that there's a lot of barriers there as well, but I prefer to call them opportunities. We have a number of assets here, the DCU Center, Polar Park, you have your colleges, the Worcester Wright Center, and of course we have a number of recreational facilities. So the Sports Commission really fills that gap there, and I look at it really as its primary mission: recruiting sporting events, building relationships with the sports governing bodies, bidding on tournaments, coordinate facilities, looking at existing facilities. I really look at it as having two buckets. One, taking stock of what we already have for sports offerings, how we can enhance it, and that includes physical infrastructure as well, and then looking at what do we want, and how do we get that to come here, and again, including physical infrastructure. And we have efforts such as the auditorium. which could in fact host things such as a sports museum or things of that nature. So there's a lot that could be done, and I really look at it, again, not duplicating efforts, but complementing each other, working together, and bringing in maybe even other folks who haven't been at the table to really try to push this forward. I think that we become stronger working together, and I think a commission really does make sense right now. I mentioned Boston. They have the Greater Boston Sports Commission, and some of these other cities, larger than Worcester, of course, but Phoenix has one, Indianapolis has one, Quincy, Illinois has one. So there are things that more and more cities around the country are looking at creating a sports-only commission. And I just think it could be a good opportunity. I think it's the right time for it. And noting, of course, that there are also folks that have brought efforts to bear. So I think that it could be a complementary effort and venture. And I appreciate your time, Mr. Chair. Any questions that your committee members or you may have?
I appreciate your comments. This is the last item, so I don't mind doing this a little differently than we've done other agenda items. Does any of my colleagues on the council, on this committee, have any questions for Mr. Byrd? Councilor Mitra?
Mr. Chair, I don't have any question, but I appreciate your coming and giving us your thoughts about this project. And we all know how sports-oriented this city is. We're just seeing the behind this city hall when we started this soccer showing on the screen, and how people are excited about it. So I think it should be here. The commission should be in place, and we're all looking forward to it. And when someone like you come here and attest to that, it makes us more encouraging and makes us feel good that we're really, it's the first step. I think it will happen. Although there are many things that we need to look at it, what makes it happen. We need to have all the ingredients that's required for us to have this commission to bring in all the sports. And most importantly, it's going to make an economic development of the city. And that's what is the ultimate point. We want to have more people come in, more economic growth, and more jobs and more businesses. It's just making the city more attractive. So thank you for coming and supporting this.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, if I may, through you to your colleagues. Again, I would be remiss. I just want to make sure we do, this is the first step for the Sports Commission. It's not the first step that has been taken. There are other folks, including Discover Central Mass, including DC Center, who are doing it. And again, I just think that it gives it a little bit more, if you call it a sports commission, you have a Worcester Sports Commission. There are, again, there's, you've seen it done before. And so I think it can, give it a little bit more juice, I guess, for lack of a better word. I'm going through my brain with the words, and that's the best one I could come up with. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Chimney?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much for speaking on this. We certainly love sports here in Worcester. I love sports. And I think we've certainly had a lot of great successes. I recognize the limitations in terms of hotel rooms, et cetera, but I think that moving forward, continuing to have people at the table is a good thing. I just have a quick question through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Dunn. What is the cost of supporting a commission such as?
Through the chair to the counselor, it depends on, I guess, what the commission is charged with. Generally, because all of our commissions are volunteers, and I think it was specific, that this be proposed as a volunteer body, it's very minor in terms of administrative materials. I mean, when you look at even what we do with the planning board, I think we give them waters and we print, have some costs related to printing materials.
I'll take the water.
Yeah, but it depends on, I could see, and I know that obviously we support Discover Central Mass in a number of different ways, and they have a number of things that they do to grow the tourism activity in the city, and there's certainly direct expenses related to marketing campaigns, things like that, but I don't see that being called for, in this commission. So I would think that as written, the cost of that would be nominal.
Okay, thank you very much.
If I may, Mr. Chair, at some point, as we're looking at efforts, yes, there's probably going to be costs associated with some of the missions that would be taken on, and that's when we would start looking out for funding sources, partners, and things of that nature. But yeah, as the Economic Development Chief Officer said, at the moment, I don't anticipate any cost for that commission.
Thank you.
Other than water.
Yep. We're low on water, so it might get costly. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Stick around, we might have some more questions if you can. Our friends from Discover Central Mass, yeah? Could you just introduce yourself, please?
Sure. I'm Monique Joseph. I'm the president of Discover Central Mass. I'm happy to talk on this topic. Thank you so much for we've been talking a little bit. Thank you for your enthusiasm on sports in the city. We have that same enthusiasm as far as sports go as well. So Discover Central Mass currently does have a sports arm of Discover Central Mass that is extremely active in many of the topics that were just talked about. We already have those particular players that need to be at the table as part of our sports committee, including the DCU Center. It is chaired by Polar Park. We do have the colleges that are already engaged on this committee. And we also have the tools in place to go out and to bid on events, which we do on a very consistent basis. We also travel to trade shows that are specific to sports-related events, trying to bring those events into the city. We have platforms that we already pay for that are specific to bringing sports tournaments into the region. The specific platform that we use currently is called Play Easy. It is populated with leads specifically by youth planners, NCAA, any type of sporting event you can think of. We're very close with the actual people that put Play Easy together. We are invited to their trade show every year because we work very closely with them. I think the idea of what we're talking about is a wonderful idea, but it's already really being done. And there's a lot of money actually already being put behind this. I think when you work for something like a bureau, a lot of times people don't understand that that work is already happening because you just don't see it, out and about. It's kind of like we do a lot of advertising, but you see it if you are outside the limits here because that's who we're marketing to or whatnot. So we hit, not only are we out there looking for new pieces of business that we can bring in, but our sports committee actually gets together. They share common ideas about what's happening. They talk about, when their kickoff games are happening, when their puck drops are going on, what type of events are going into the colleges and whatnot, how they can help each other. And we meet on a consistent basis. So those are things that are already happening behind the scenes. And you are correct that Boston does have a sports commission. Springfield has one also. But if you look at those commissions, they are actually a part of and an arm of their regional tourism bureau, which is the same thing of what we have right now. We have brought people in. We've done a full inventory of the facilities that are available. We do have that right on our website. We have a section of our website dedicated to bringing sporting events in. Not only do we try and bring sporting events in, but we also target the families and the fans of the sporting events that are happening. I do believe that this would be a redundant effort. I think that if people are interested, we could strengthen what we're currently doing, but I do think that committee would end up eventually looking for funding as bids take money to bring into a city. A lot of these bids require bidding fees. So Discover Central Mass does not have a bucket of bid fees available to us, but we do our best in trying to work with these planners in different ways. We'll offer in-kind services. We'll offer complimentary, marketing if we can do it. If we can find any money in our private bucket, maybe we'll take out, just a small sponsorship amount. Something like poetry and baseball. We help them kick off, and now that event is growing. So there's a lot that we already do. I do believe you would end up with the same people at the table that we already have actively working in our group. We call it a committee. I know the word commission is thrown around as well, but I believe that you would end up with the exact same thing and another just another committee that's doing the exact same work. And I believe it would probably be the same people that are asked to sit on that committee as we are currently, we try and tap in anybody that we feel would be an active member.
Could I just ask you one question, then I want to go to Mr. Dunn. How many people are on that committee, or commission, whatever you want to call it?
On our full board, we have 21 people, and we have about 13 people right now on the sports committee that are just dedicated sports-wise.
Have you had a larger number of people in the past, or is it capped specifically?
It's not capped, but because it's a committee, it's basically the people that come to it are, the colleges come, your colleges, places like the DCU Center, Polar Park, the Bravehearts. We have the hotels come because the hotels want to know what's going on with the tournaments. They want to know how to fill their hotels from the pieces of businesses that are coming in. We can have as many people as we want on it. It's a committee meeting, right? So it's typically done by Zoom. Sometimes we get in touch in person. We do have people from the city. We do have Matt Moore, that is part of Discover Central Mass, and on that branch as well, that discusses sports on a regular basis.
Well, thank you. I want to hear from Mr. Dunn as well, so.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I just wanted to make the point as the conversation happens to have the opportunity that I do know the city manager's intent is to come back with a report on this topic to the council, so we don't have to decide on it one way or another now. I know he's working on that in partnership with stakeholders, so I just want to make sure the committee was aware of that intention. And I haven't been, it could come from my office or just directly from the city manager's office, and where those conversations are still happening. Just one thing that struck me as I was thinking about the description of DCM's committee, who are the right people to be on it, as well as what was described in this petition around local business leaders, the venue representatives, college athletic staff, hospitality professionals, that as far as I know, every one of our municipal commissions are Worcester residents only. So you could have the right people, and probably likely some of the people that are serving on that capacity right now, maybe you can't have those right people involved in the municipal commission if it's going to follow the same, guidelines like every other municipal commission that we have that's limited only to Worcester residents. Just something to consider.
Councillor Toomey?
Thank you. I look forward to the report coming back from the city manager.
Councillor Mitra?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To you,
Thank you for your work.
Yeah,
to the president here from Discover Central Mass, thanks for coming and giving us your insight about this particular topic. The fact that you have a sort of committee on this, how well is it known to the city residents or others? I haven't known that there is a committee which is actively working for bringing in sports, in the past. I always have a feeling that the Discover Central Mass should be the upfront to promote our city. A lot of things that Worcester has that people don't know. We talk always about the difficulties we have, the roads, the repair, the police, the potholes, all that kind of thing we're always talking about. But the gem of things that Worcester has, the hidden gems, such as Mechanics Hall, such as Worcester Museum, such as the Polar Park, and what really makes this city a unique city is something I always look forward to see that there is a promotion of that. And I look forward to the DCM to do that, Discover Central Mass. And I wasn't quite aware of that there is a committee that you have, but I don't know how well it is published or how well it is really promoted. So give me a little about how are you going to be promoting this city. The whole idea of bringing this commission is to make the economy grow, make the city more attractive. Sports is an integral part of this whole city. People love sports. You can see that how it brings the community together. Polar Park has been it's sort of like a very inspiring thing for people to come with the family and enjoy their evenings. And same thing, the whole world is coming together when this World Cup soccer is going on. So you can see how sports really brings us all together with no politics involved in there, but really enjoy the things and come together. So I'd like to see this Discover Central Mass do more for this city. And as I said, I'm glad that you came and mentioned, but I wasn't aware that there is one. So something like that should be probably known.
Sure. And, it is when that's something that we're working on a consistent basis. It's not something that we go out and advertise that we have this, but I think it shows through the work that we're actually doing. When you see the report that we have put together, I think you'll be surprised at how much effort actually goes into the sports market and how much we really focus on that. And I think that a lot of the stakeholders involved in the sporting arena are very aware of it because we work together on a daily basis. I sit on the Bravehearts board of directors. I work very closely, or we work very closely, like I said, with Polar Park. That's why we're having them be the chair. They are the chair of this committee, they also sit on our board, and then the hotels that are looking, you know, the colleges, because we work together to bring different groups in. Like right now, we're working together as a team to bring in the Special Olympics to come back to Worcester, right? So those are things that we work on internally. A lot of the other things that we do are based on, you know, you need to have the right technology to be able to even bid on these things. And we spend a lot of money making sure that we have the right technology in place, so when a planner or a sporting tournament director is looking at a location, they know they have everything right at their fingertips because we've already invested in that to make it easy for them. Things like we have a bidding program where we can put together full bids. We can work with the hotels. We can get Polar Park, DCU Center, Holy Cross, and the hotels to all feed their information to us, and we can provide a bid to the planner. We can bring those planners in. We do FAM tours with planners, bringing them in and touring them through the assets of what makes our city great and why they should choose us over other locations. But those aren't really things that you would write about in the newspaper, or, you know, that you would see that work that we're doing out there. You see it when we get a win, right? Like Pan Mass Challenge is coming in. So we worked with Pan Mass Challenge to help get that here as well. You'll see the win when it comes through, but you don't necessarily see the behind the scenes and what's going into making those things happen.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your coming and giving us that, inside story. But, Mr. Chair, I'd really like to look forward to the report that Mr. Dunn said will be coming in to us. And this is an integral part of the city, bringing the sports here and making us all come together and make the city look good and be a good economic, inspiration and really making people come together and with this sports activities here. So thank you, Mr. Dunn, for your insight into it, and I look forward to the report. Thank you.
I just have a couple maybe follow-up questions or comments before we finish up. If I hear, I'm looking at the order. First of all, let me go back to one item that is part of these combination of items that I think it's only fair, because it was brought up by several counselors, to get the answer before I finish up with my other comments on some other items. The NCAA tournament, it seems to me, and we've had our office staff do a lot of work and some great memos. It seems to me I could summarize our inability to be able to attract that type of event, and it's probably many moving parts, but I could break it down to we don't have enough hotel space. And is that the simple answer?
That's the simple answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
We need 10 hotels, and we have 3.
Exactly. And so what we're doing is we're looking to hotels outside of the region, or outside of the city,
But the
I
flip
should
side
say,
of that is,
to try and fill that. And the NCAA, they have so many locations, they want to be as close as possible, and they have told us that flat out. They say it's not
and
ideal.
if we give the business to other hotels outside of Worcester, we're kind of defeating the purpose of being the host city, because we lose out on the benefits of having them here, having the visitors here. So I get that, but I just wanted to make sure that was the answer.
That's
So-
absolutely the answer.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing from the order, from some of the comments, Mr. Bird's comments, Councilor Conomo on the council phone when he spoke about it, is whether this, and we're all going to wait to get the report back from the manager. And it sounds like it's going to involve a lot of input, which is good. But it sounds like there are people like Mr. Bird and others who would like an in, a foot in the door, so to speak, and having a say in how we attract sports to Worcester. And it sounds like you've got a group already set up, and I have no issue or criticism about the quality of the people in that group. I'm sure they're all great. But it seems to me that local, residents, should have some role in, coming from a perspective that maybe some of these organizations wouldn't normally see coming, because these are people that live in the city, want more sports to be here. They don't necessarily have a vested interest in an organization per se, but they just would like to see more sports developing in Worcester. So, we'll have to wait for the report, but is there a world, so to speak, that your commission or committee can incorporate others to become larger, but also become more effective? Because larger isn't always more effective, but to become more effective.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. If you would like to join the committee, we're happy to send you an invite when the next meeting is. Like I said, mostly it's on Zoom. There's already a book of work that's, a lot of the people are going to talk about, the business that's coming in, the room blocks. We're happy to share with you the advertising we do, the shows that we go to, how we're going after things, open to ideas if you have other ideas of, how to bring groups in.
I'm going to, if I
Absolutely.
might, make a guess that I could be totally wrong on,
Yeah.
which has happened to me many times in my life, but hopefully not now. Are all the members of this board Worcester residents, the existing board?
I would say probably not.
Would you say more are or more aren't? And I don't want you to name names or anything.
I would say more are Worcester focused because that's where the majority of the Worcester of the events take place
The
is
only-
here in Worcester.
The only reason why I ask that is I think it's very important to have people that live here to be part of that. And I'm not saying there aren't people already that are, but not everyone is, and that's okay too. But I think having the impact or influence of somebody local or people that are local could be very, very helpful. Councilor Toomey, do you have something you want to?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the point you were making was Worcester residents, and you were talking about Worcester focus. So that, to me, says folks from the colleges and some folks from the DCU and don't live in the city, but they work here and
Yeah.
all that. And so I agree with my colleague that it's good to have local flavor.
A local voice, sure.
That's right. So I think if you consider that, that would be.
Yeah, it's nice not to compete, but to complement. I think that's what we're
Right.
trying to see if we can come up with an idea here that does that.
And we're happy to do that because, again, I think if you had a second group of people doing the same thing, it would probably end up coming right back to us because we're the ones with the tools already in place to move forward things that need to be done. So we're happy to invite people in. It's
If I may, it's kind of a little off the topic, but it's interesting because you and I were at an event today where the Penn Mass
Yeah.
was discussed. How did you get that to Worcester? If
So-
there's no trade secret that you have to divulge, how did they come to Worcester?
So they have been outgrowing Sturbridge for a long time, but it was not as easy as, look, they just want to come here, and so it happens. There's a lot of coordination behind the scenes that take place. We had to do a lot of conversations with the hotels because the hotels did not have the amount of inventory that they needed to actually support the event. You're talking, we were out there calling owners of the hotels. We worked very closely with Sue Brogan, who's the planner who spoke today, who we sat down at a table together and said, how do we make this happen? We have to go higher than just the director of sales. We have to get to the top dog and explain what this is and the benefit to the city of this. So we worked collectively to figure out how to move that program and to get it to work here in the city. And
Deserve lots of compliments on getting that event here. Do you think can't predict the future with any certainty, but think it's likely this could repeat itself?
it will absolutely repeat itself. And actually, the planner was telling us that they had over 400 additional registrations since they moved to the city. So the caliber of this event, they want to be in the city. They want the top-notch hotels. They want the restaurants on Shrewsbury Street. They want this type of location to continue bringing in those high-end donors.
Good. All right, thank you. Any other questions from my colleagues? Thank you for being here. Mr. Byrd, you had something you want to add, and there's somebody in the back that wants to speak too. So, is this on this issue? No, it's not on this issue. You told us to wait, so we are waiting for that issue. Well, my wife has asked this man, and he said we were done. You're trying to configure BG zoning of 42 Herman Street. Yeah, so what I said earlier, and I apologize if there was a... No, it's all right. Please, everybody just hold on. So if you may have misunderstood me earlier. What I said was if you wanted to speak at the time, we would hear you, but it's been continued for another day, and you'll have another chance to speak as well. So when you didn't speak at that time, I assumed you were waiting for the other opportunity to speak. You're more than welcome after this, we're going to finish in like 5 minutes, to say what you want to say about this issue. I won't... Okay. Okay. You're very welcome. So thank you. Any other comments from my colleagues?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Byrd, you had a couple you want to follow up with? And then we're going to take a vote to, I think, file this. Is that correct? Or are we going to... No, we're actually going to... We'll do a chairman's order, I think. Hang on one second, Mr. Byrd. Mr. Dunn, what's your recommendation?
Yeah, certainly up to you and the committee. I think, as I mentioned, because I know the manager's intention is to come back with a report on 5A, you could have the chairman's order requesting, because this was a, an order that Councilor Economo initiated, so it never went through the manager's office yet, so you could send it to the manager for a report back. I do think the other ones specifically related to NCAA could potentially be filed.
Yeah.
But for 5A, you could send that along to the manager for a report back.
Okay, so I'm going to, before we go to you, Mr. Byrd, Councilor Toomey had a question.
Sure, I just wanted to put in a plug for any robotics competitions. I think that would be, considering we have WPI here in the city, but we also have a lot of national robotics competitions that are out there, and I think they may have outgrown WPI, and I think it would be great to see if we could have use our TCU venue, et cetera. So just a thought.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Byrd?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the committee for entertaining our discussions, and I really I appreciate the offer on the committee. I'd be honored. I think the last thing any of us wants is to have an us versus them thing, or, hey, we were here first. So, whatever is going to work to make Worcester a sports destination. I think the biggest thing, and that's why when you read my order, it was so long, because I wanted to make sure that we include all the other voices. It's not just baseball and basketball and football. It's boxing that Worcester has a rich history of. It's soccer that Worcester has a rich history of. There's so many other things. So I just think if we could bring some more voices in, and if it's an existing committee, and whether it's a consolidation, whether it's just a name thing, I don't think that I certainly don't want to be, somebody's trying to muscle in. We work together, and we work for the same purpose. I think that's what we're hearing tonight.
Good.
So I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman.
No, thank you. I think we can all work together to make this work for everyone. So my motion would be on item 4B, would be to file. Can we take these separately, Mr. Pottle?
Absolutely, Mr.
Would
Chairman.
you do the roll call then, please? 4B, to file.
Councilors Mitra,
Yes.
Toomey,
Yes.
and Chairperson Councilor Bergman.
Yes. 5A would be to send to the man, it would be a chairman's order, ask the manager to report back to the council on the request made under item 5A. And then I think we would maybe hold the item, waiting for the manager's report, or we would file it.
Mr. Chairman, you could also just recommend approval of that item, and then the order would go back and be adopted by the full council.
But the order does ask for a commission to be established, so I don't want to cause any problems with us trying to work all this out.
Sure. So then a
By-
chairman's order for the report related to the commission.
Yeah, I think they'll hold it.
That works.
Wait for the report to come back. My colleagues have any issue with that? No. Okay, it's chairman's order you've got, and the item, roll call to hold 5A, please.
Councilors Mitra,
Yes.
Toomey,
Yes.
and Chairperson Councilor Bergman.
Thank you. And 5B and C, if it's okay, take collectively, would be a motion to file.
Councilors Mitra,
Yes.
Toomey,
Yes.
and Chairperson Councilor Bergman.
Yes. And then, folks in the back, we haven't forgotten you. You're here, you wanted to speak, so you're welcome to come up. This is on item 3B.
Yes, Louis Reyes, City of Worcester.
Helen Raptis.
Okay, go ahead, you've got our attention, you've got the whole room's attention.
You want to start it, or you want me to start it?
You can go
Okay.
first.
We have a situation with Centro America, right? Where they
Is it 3D? I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is BG3.
Okay, my misspoke, Councilman Mitra's correct.
Zoning.
3D is the agenda item. I said 3B, so my apologies. No, we have it.
Okay.
I spoke wrong, you're right.
Okay.
3D.
My situation with this is where 42 Herman Street is right there. We have from Main Street all the way to, what's that other street with the fire department? Madison, Southbridge Street. This street, since one of the zone streets, which was Jackson, which is on Southbridge, it was shut down, and it's a one-way. Then through Beacon, all the way down to what was Madison Street, There was the other construction of the other building, the street was closed. Now, my argument with the Centro de America is, we do not want this changing because now it becomes where Herman Street going down to Southbridge is just a cluster with all kinds of traffic.
No
Sometimes
parking.
we can't even park. Sometimes we have a problem backing up out of there. The fire department from Southbridge has to let these people know we gotta come through here to the main street, which it would be Main Street, regular with the YWCA is. I don't know what they wanna do zoning when, leave it the way it is.
So here's the challenge we have. Since they're not here tonight, we can't really understand what they're asking other than what we're reading.
Okay.
So in fairness, and that's why I said earlier, you're welcome to speak tonight, but you're also welcome to speak when they're here. And then we could ask them what their intent is, and then we can go back and forth like we've done with some of these other items. But it's very hard for us to make decisions when we hear one side, we don't hear the other. So we hear what you're saying, and I'm sure it's a concern of yours, and we'd like to know what their response would be, but we're not going to have it tonight. That's
They
the
have
problem.
even exhibits to show you how it is.
Congested it is? Are you going to be able to come
Yes.
back at the next meeting?
We're gonna try to because we already been here 3 times, just like my wife
Because
said.
I was going to say, you're welcome before we finish to show us the exhibits if you don't think you can come back.
Well, as far as the clusters and everything else, I have so many pages here. I was looking, trying to look at them, I can't find them.
Okay, so
But I'm
just have them for the next time.
Yes, I will, because they're in
And
there.
if they happen to cancel again,
Well, I can't predict the future. I can just say that when there are medical issues and traveling challenges, we have to be realistic. I would do the same thing if you called the clerk's office and said you're opposed to it, but you have some medical, God forbid, issue. So I can't say we wouldn't consider it, but I can say that at this point, we expect it to be heard. I can't say with 100% certainty.
Mr. Chairman, when you find the pictures, perhaps you could email them to the city clerk's office.
Oh, sure.
And then he can accept them and then give them to us, so that we have that.
Look at that, that's even better.
we'll still be here.
Thank you.
All right.
We'll
See,
see
if, let me just say, that if we didn't think there was a legitimate reason, we wouldn't allow the continuance, but we have to be realistic.
Vacation, you mentioned.
No, I said somebody is out of the country, I didn't say vacation, and I said that the previous time, there was a medical issue, with a serious medical issue.
I mean, this
No,
was
but-
this time today.
I understand, but,
We're all here.
I understand, but if, God forbid, you were in the same situation and needed,
Vacation.
No,
God
I didn't-
forbid I was.
no, sick or traveling out of the country and couldn't get back.
Different. That's
Okay.
understandable.
So we have to have some leeway. If you're telling me you're going to not be around this summer, you're traveling somewhere, that'd be a different story. But if you're able to come back, we have to be lenient.
I will come back, but I want everyone here to know how much we strongly object, and we will discuss it again.
The fact that you've waited 2 hours to say that has, certainly we got the message. And we look forward to seeing you in probably about 6 weeks. How are you getting the dates? How have you been notified? Mr. Clerk, have we been,
Mr. Chairman, they are one of the abutters.
and you haven't changed your address?
No.
And you won't expect to change your address?
Can I just make?
So you'll get a note. Yep.
Can I make a suggestion, Mr. Chair? That I've noticed that there has been a huge delay in the Postal Service, and so make sure that we factor that in when we're sending out the next notice.
Through the chair to the counselor, fortunately, zone changes require pretty substantive advertisements in the newspaper, so we need to know about a month before a hearing is even taking place, so notices for these shouldn't be an issue.
Okay, great.
Never mind the accidents in that street. Oh, my God.
All right, well, we'll look forward to a more vigorous conversation with both sides of here in about 6 weeks.
I appreciate you.
You're very welcome.
You have a great
You
weekend.
too.
Thank you so much.
Enjoy the July 4th.
Good evening.
Subcommittee, you're very welcome. The Subcommittee of the Economic Development, Subcommittee of the City Council is concluded its business. Would you take a roll call? Motion to adjourn.
Councilors Mitra,
Yes.
Toomey,
Yes.
and Chairperson Councilor Burke.
Yes, thank you.